Hey guys, tonight we're brushing our way back through the dusty halls of time straight into the tiled courtyards, cracked plaster walls and sun-baked streets of ancient Egypt. You're not a pharaoh, you're not even a priest or a scribe. You're a perfectly average person living in a humble little mud brick house, a few dozen paces from the Nile, the kind of place that smells permanently of clay-warm dates and a vague but lingering hint of onion stew. Your bed is a woven mat, your pillow is a bundle of cloth stuffed with reeds, and your first breath of the day. Let's just say it's not ideal. You stretch, yawn, and instantly regret it. Your mouth feels like it's been scrubbed with wool then left out to dry in the desert. There's a kind of film over your tongue, and your molars feel suspiciously furry. Welcome to the morning hygiene ritual in 1500 BCE. No minty mouthwash, no triple-action electric toothbrush, just you a wooden stick and a powdered mixture that may or may not contain crushed animal bone. And honestly, you probably wouldn't survive this. Your teeth soft pampered. 21st century teeth aren't built for what you're about to face. Between the sand-filled bread, the gravel-textured toothpaste and the constant chewing of unfiltered flour, you're in for a dental experience that's equal parts fascinating and horrifying. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know, where are you listening from? What time is it for you right now? Drop your location and time in the comments. It's amazing to see this sleepy little community stretch across the globe. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You sit up on your mat, still half lost in a dream about falling into a pyramid full of cats. Your mouth tastes like old barley and regret. There's no mirror, no sink, just a small clay bowl by your bedside and a bundle of dried twigs tied with palm fibre. These you'll come to realise are your morning essentials. Your version of a toothbrush is a salvadora stick, a common chewing twig harvested from the toothbrush tree. You select the least brittle one, chew the tip to fray it slightly, and begin the process of brushing. It doesn't foam, it doesn't sparkle, but it does scrub. The fibres rub against your enamel with a soft scratching sound somewhere between a rake in sand and the feeling of brushing corduroy with a popsicle stick. Beside your knee, a small jar contains your family's prized tooth powder, a coarse mix of burnt ox hooves, powdered eggshell pumice and a pinch of dried mint if it was a good harvest year. You dip the chewed twig into the jar, tap it to shake off the excess dust, then carefully begin again, front teeth first, then working your way toward the back. You move slowly, not because you're being gentle, but because you're bracing for pain. This powder is no joke. The taste. Like trying to eat a campfire that someone accidentally dropped a beetle into. It's earthy bitter and ever so slightly acidic. Still you continue. Oral hygiene is important, not just for vanity, but for health, for ritual, and for your soul. Ancient Egyptians believed that the mouth was sacred. It was the passageway for breath speech offerings, and even spiritual power. In fact, when someone died, there was a whole ritual called the opening of the mouth performed during mummification to allow the deceased to speak in the afterlife. So you better believe keeping your teeth clean was more than just about fresh breath. You spit into the clay bowl beside you, a chalky brownish mix. You rinse your mouth with a splash of barley water, swish it around and spit again. It's not exactly refreshing, but it's better than walking into the day with tomb breath. Your mother knocks softly and slides back the curtain to your room. She's already dressed and has flour on her forearms. Bread's cooling, she says. Don't chew too fast this time. You nod, rubbing your jaw from last night's snack, an apricot pastry that shattered like sandstone the moment it hit your molars. Outside, the sun is just beginning to rise. The sky's turning that hazy peach colour that means it's going to be another hot one. The Nile glimmers in the distance, flat and golden. Birds are already darting between palm fronds, and your father is in the courtyard sitting on a low stool sharpening a bronze blade. You hear the scrape of metal on stone as he squints into the morning light. You head to the small cooking area where your mother places a piece of bread on a wooden plate. It's a round, unleavened loaf crust dark from the fire. You take a bite and instantly regret it. Crunch, grit, crunch. You pause, chewing slowly. There's sand in the bread again. This isn't unusual. In fact, it's standard. Ancient Egyptian flour was ground using stone mortars, which meant tiny fragments of quartz and sandstone made their way into almost everything. Your bread, flavoured with fennel and coriander, is also laced with enough fine grit to wear your teeth down like pottery on a wheel. You keep chewing, slowly, carefully. The flavour is good, but you can feel the familiar drag of enamel against grain. The bread is dense, filling, and rough enough to be considered exfoliating. By the time you're done, your teeth feel tired. You rinse again. The barley water tastes flat but clean. You chew another twig, scrub a little more, not because it helps, but because your gums now feel like they've been attacked by both food and fire. Historians today still puzzle over how a civilization so advanced in medicine and cleanliness had such rampant dental decay. The answer they suspect lies in the grain. Egyptians loved their bread. It was their staple, their currency, their love language. But the way it was milled meant that every bite was a tiny act of erosion. Even the rich, even the royals, even the pharaohs with their golden spoons suffered from dental wear and gum disease, and yet they brushed religiously. You finish your morning routine with a pinch of natron rubbed across your tongue. It's a salty drying mineral that helps reduce odour, or so the old women say. It also tastes like licking a soap-covered brick. You wince. But your mouth does feel drier. Cleaner, maybe. You tie back your hair, wrap a cloth around your head to shield yourself from the heat, and step out into the street. Children are laughing nearby, chasing a hoop with a stick. A neighbour carries a basket of dates on her head. Someone is singing about crocodiles again, probably for luck, and you. You walk with a slightly sore jaw, a lingering taste of chalk and mint, and the quiet knowledge that your mouth, despite everything, is as clean as it's going to get. Another day begins. Another battle with ancient plaque awaits. You chew slowly, painfully through the last bite of your breakfast loaf. Bits of barley cling to your teeth, and that gritty crunch of stone dust in the crust doesn't just tickle your nerves, it makes them sing. Your tongue seeks out the sore spot near the back, where a grain of sand scored a tiny canyon in your molar weeks ago. It's not bleeding today, but it's certainly grumbling. You reach again for your toothbrush, or more precisely, your well-chewed twig. It's beginning to fray now just at the tip where the fibres have softened into something that vaguely resembles a modern brush. The wood squeaks between your fingers as you lift it, and the bark scratches your palm, a quiet reminder that self-care in this century is not comfortable. You've already used it once this morning, but in Egypt people brush more than once a day. Oral hygiene isn't something you perform in the privacy of a bathroom, it's part of public routine woven into the rhythm of daylight. You've seen priests chew their sticks while walking through the temple courtyard. You've seen merchants scrubbing at their teeth between customers. Even children play tooth cleaner when their toys are broken or missing. So you chew the end a little more, split the fibres again, and get to work on your second cleaning of the day. No fancy toothpaste now, just friction and resolve. The fibres squeak slightly as they press into your gum line. You wince. It's not glamorous, but you keep at it, twisting your wrist this way and that, angling into the sore spots, drawing out flecks of food and yesterday's regrets. You spit into the dirt at the edge of the walkway discreetly. A stray dog trots past and pauses to sniff the spot. You pretend not to notice. The stick doesn't do everything, so you reach into the little cloth pouch slung across your shoulder and pull out a second item, a lump of toothpaste. You don't call it that, not yet. But it's your mother's recipe, a family blend passed down through 3 grandmothers and one surprisingly toothy aunt. You unwrap the linen and reveal a pale grey chunk crumbly at the edges. It smells faintly of mint, but also ash, and something vaguely like chicken bones. You pinch off a piece, crumble it between your fingers, and use your stick to press it into your teeth. There's no foam, but there is friction, and more grit. You scrape, swirl, tap, spit. The blend works, sort of. Your teeth feel cleaner, less fuzzy. But you can't help wondering as you do every morning whether this stuff is slowly grinding your mouth into dust. Historians would later confirm this suspicion. Egyptian dental hygiene, despite its effort and frequency, had a downside. That famous toothpaste powder was often made of rock salt ash, pumice and charcoal, all highly abrasive. Sure, they cleaned the teeth, but they also destroyed enamel. The result, beautifully white teeth that hurt all the time, and the frayed twig. Called a chewing stick, it worked so well in fact that versions of it are still used today across parts of Africa and the Middle East. But even those soft fibres couldn't undo the damage of a diet laced with invisible stones. You rinse with a little water, then spit again. Now comes the fun part. You reach into your satchel once more and pull out a jar the size of a date pit sealed with beeswax. Inside the good stuff. Your grandmother calls it moon dust. It's a mix of dried, mint-crushed cloves and something nobody will name except to say it comes from the temple kitchen. You dab your finger in and press a little under your tongue. Instantly your mouth cools. Your breath softens. It almost feels fresh. You smile. Not wide. You don't want to crack that molar again, but a little. You head down the street, stick tucked into your belt now, and join the morning traffic. Merchants call out their wares: figs, papyrus bundles of herbs, cured fish. A man squats by a table and shouts about magical cures for toothaches. You pause. He waves a scroll at you and says, "Spell for removing pain from your jaw. Guaranteed. Only 3 copper. You keep walking. You've tried those spells. They never work. Besides, you've got your own plan today. You're heading to the House of Life, a temple complex where scribes, healers and priests tend to the written and wounded alike. You're not sick, not officially. But there's a girl there, a scribe's apprentice, who once told you about a cinnamon-based tooth powder used by high priests. You're hoping she'll trade a handful for a prayer bead. Along the way, you stop at a small water vendor and sip a ladleful from a clay pot. You swish it before swallowing. It's cleaner than what you have at home, cool and slightly sweet, probably drawn from a better well. As you approach the temple, the smell shifts. Less fish, more incense. You pass under a stone arch, nod to a guard, and make your way to the back corridor where the apprentices sit on woven mats copying papyrus scrolls. The girl is there, hunched over a hymn to Hathor, her brush, moving in smooth, precise arcs. You kneel beside her. She looks up, smiles. You hold out the prayer bead. She raises an eyebrow. For what you tap your cheek. Cinnamon. She reaches into a pouch and pulls out a small packet. It smells glorious, warm, spicy, not gritty. She hands it over and takes the bead with a nod. "Don't eat it all at once," she says, smirking. You find a quiet spot near the garden wall and open the pouch. It's powdery but soft, mixed with powdered honey and dried peppermint. You dip your stick in and begin brushing again. For the first time today, your teeth don't ache when you scrub. You close your eyes, let the breeze pass over your face. Somewhere nearby, someone begins chanting a morning hymn. The papyrus leaves rustle. A beetle scuttles across your sandal. And for a brief moment, your mouth feels like it belongs to someone from the future. You smile again, this time a little wider. By midday, the sun hangs heavy above the Nile and everything in your little world begins to shimmer. Rooftops, pottery, the distant palm trees, even the very air seems to ripple with heat. You duck beneath the shade of your neighbour's awning, a woven mat tied between 2 cracked pillars, and suck on the end of a sugarcane stalk. Its juice is sweet, cool and soothing, especially against the back of your aching teeth. Your molars throb, that breakfast bread still haunting you. You're not sure what ground your mother's grain this morning, but it tasted like she borrowed a fistful of sand straight from the temple path. There's grit in your gums, a sliver wedged under your tongue, and a persistent bruising pulse in your lower jaw that's starting to feel familiar. It's the kind of ache you don't admit out loud, because everyone's teeth hurt here. It's just part of living. The Nile floods the grain is stored, the bread is baked, and you chew it until your mouth protests. You keep chewing anyway. A shadow falls over you. It's your friend Ipu holding a fig and wearing that tight grimace that says he bit into something harder than expected. Cracked seed, he mutters, pressing his jaw. Or rock. Same thing. You nod. Bread again. He gestures toward the public oven still belching out heat. The millers are mixing in last season's flour. Probably swept it up off the ground. I swear I crunched a pebble the size of a scarab. You hand him your spare cane stalk and he takes it with a grateful nod. The two of you sit in silence for a while, chewing and wincing. Around you, the market hums lazily, stalls half covered to shield from the heat. Women fanning their faces, children napping on rolled-up mats. A nearby potter glazes his jars in silence, a fine white dust clinging to the sweat on his arms. You notice something curious on the ground near Ipu's sandal, a small ivory stick about the size of a finger, carved at one end with the likeness of a lion's head. What's that, you ask? He picks it up and grins. Toothpick. From my uncle's shop. He got it from a visiting merchant, said the Greeks use these. You raise an eyebrow. Greeks, you repeat, unsure if he's teasing. He shrugs. That's what he says. They carve their teeth clean instead of scrubbing them. Seems easier. You accept the toothpick and gently test its edge along your gum line. It slides between your teeth with just enough pressure to dislodge a flake of barley husk. You spit it out and sigh. It's a strange kind of relief. You wonder aloud, what do you think the nobles use? Ipu raises his eyebrows. Golden brushes, rose water, pebble-free cakes. You laugh. But he's not entirely wrong. You've heard stories, some wild, some whispered, about the hygiene rituals of the upper class, that certain nobles rinse their mouths with imported wine, or that their servants boil cinnamon bark into a rinse so potent it makes your breath smell like incense for days. One scribe claimed he once saw a high priest apply ground emerald to his gums for divine freshness. Another said the pharaoh keeps a chest of dried herbs beside his throne, refreshed daily by 4 servants who never speak. Historians still debate the truth of these details. Were noble mouths really bathed in perfumes and spices? Did gold powder ever touch a living tooth? Some believe it's all symbolic offerings, rituals nothing meant for practical cleaning. Others suspect there's a grain of truth buried beneath the gossip, just like sand in every loaf. You and Ipu head toward the bakery district where the real source of your dental woes lives. There rows of women kneel before low stone slabs grinding grain into flour with long back and forth strokes. The stones are dark, worn and chipped, each pass shaving off tiny particles that disappear into the mix. They don't stop. They can't. The bread has to be made. You watch for a while, mesmerized by the rhythm, the scrape of stone on stone, the shifting of knees on rush mats, the way their arms move in perfect synchrony, the way the sweat darkens their sleeves. You ask one of the women how much stone ends up in the flour. She laughs. More than grain some days. Another chimes in. That's why we soak the bread. But it doesn't help. Teeth crack anyway. You thank them and step back, watching as a boy scoops the flour into baskets lined with cloth. He doesn't even flinch when a puff of dust clouds his face. This, Ipu says, is where your toothache begins. He's not wrong. You part ways and you head home before the sun melts the roads entirely. Your mother has laid out lunch, lentil stew, pickled onions, and of course bread. You tear off a piece, dip it into the bowl and chew carefully. Each bite is a gamble. You wince. That same molar flares again, pulsing with every grind. Afterward you brush. Same stick, same powder, Same sour taste, but something in you shifts. You remember the toothpick. You dig it out and run it gently between your back teeth, clearing away the grit and husk. It works. Better than the stick, even. You rinse, lean back against the cool wall of your home and sigh. That evening you visit the perfumer near the temple. Her stall smells like honey and herbs. She sells you a small cone of resin meant to be chewed after meals, lifts the breath she promises, sweetens your words. You pop it in your mouth and chew slowly. It's sticky, warm, a little bitter. But the effect is real. Your breath no longer smells like onions and bread. It smells faintly of myrrh and licorice. You walk home through streets lit with torchlight, your jaw sore, your mouth tingling, and the ache behind your molar just a little quieter. You write a note in your memory, tomorrow less bread. But you know you'll eat it anyway, because it's what you have, because it's what fills you, because even if it grinds your teeth to nubs, it's home. The morning sun climbs slowly over the Nile's pale curve, casting a sleepy glow across the rooftops of Thebes. Inside your home, the cool air of early dawn is already retreating. You wake with a familiar soreness in your jaw and that dull ache in your back molar, the one that's been humming quietly since last harvest. It pulses gently as you sit up like a tiny drum, reminding you that even after brushing twice yesterday, the battle against bread grit is far from over. You swing your feet over the edge of your woven mat, stretch your arms toward the low ceiling and wince slightly when your tongue brushes the sore spot behind your last tooth. You don't even need a mirror. You can feel the rough edges. That molar's been ground down by years of barley husks, stone-powdered bread and tooth powder that's only a few degrees gentler than a desert windstorm. Still, the day won't wait for you. You reach for your chewing stick, a Salvadora twig worn soft from weeks of use. Its tip has split into a bristle, dry and yellowed at the end. You chew it slightly to soften it again, letting the bitterness seep across your tongue. It tastes earthy, peppery, a hint of green bark and something like dust after rain. Familiar. You retrieve your tooth powder from its jar. This one's your family's special mix: ground limestone ash, dried mint, and a few flakes of crushed myrrh. You press the twig into the mixture and begin your routine, slowly, deliberately, scrubbing each tooth with care, angling the twig just so to catch the grooves. You've learned not to brush too hard, not because anyone warned you, but because you've cracked enamel before. That was a lesson you don't need to repeat. You spit into a small clay bowl and rinse with a ladle of barley water. It's tepid, slightly cloudy, but clean enough. You swish spit again, then run your tongue along your teeth. Better. Not perfect, but better. Your mother calls from the next room. She's already kneading the dough for the morning loaves. The grinding women were up before dawn, shaping yesterday's grain into another day's bread. You wince instinctively. Bread means chewing. Chewing means grit. You tie a cloth around your head and step outside. The sun is warm already. Street dogs nap in doorways. A young boy is chasing a chicken with a stick. Two vendors are arguing over the price of onions, though you suspect it's just their daily ritual of entertainment. You pass the potter's courtyard, the scent of wet clay in the air, and the blacksmith's forge where the hammering has already begun. You're headed to the temple district, not to pray not today, but to visit someone who might be able to help with your tooth. Again. His name is Genenet, though most people call him Old Gum. He's not a doctor. He's a healer, a tooth reader, a man of many powders, poultices, and scrolls with titles like spells for the pain in the jawbone and words to make the ache sleep. Some people think he's mad. Others think he once studied under a royal physician and now just prefers figs over fame. You find him where he usually is, under the fig tree near the garden wall of the lesser temple. He's surrounded by woven baskets filled with dried herbs, cracked jars, and a collection of tiny pestles, each stained a different shade of mystery. He looks up as you approach. You again, he says without malice. Same molar. You nod, still throbbing. Worse after meals. He gestures for you to sit. You do, kneeling on a mat that smells faintly of clove and sweat. Open, he says. You do. He peers into your mouth with a small bronze hook, lifting your cheek gently and muttering under his breath. You try not to flinch. The breeze rustles the fig tree above you. Not rotten, he says after a moment, but it's thinning. The root feels tender. You nod. He reaches into a basket and produces a jar of dark grey paste. This is ground basil root and date vinegar, he says, with a touch of black salt. Press it into the gum. Morning and night, you take the jar carefully. It's cool, slightly sticky and smells sharp, like something between sour bread and rain on hot stone. He hands you a second item, a thin scroll. For dreams, he says. You blink. Dreams, pain stays when words are stuck. He says, tapping his temple. Say the spell before you sleep. Speak to the ache. See what it says. You thank him with a nod, place a bead on the offering tray beside his mat and leave with your jar and your spell. On the way home, you stop by the perfumer's stall. She greets you with a grin and a puff of rose-scented dust. You've still got that pain, she asks. You nod. She hands you a small pouch of something grainy, crushed fennel, mix with oil, rinse gently. You promise to try, and you do. At home, after a lunch of lentil stew and soft bread well soaked to avoid trouble, you mix a pinch of the fennel into a spoonful of water. You rinse. The taste is sweet, a little sharp, but refreshing. The pain doesn't vanish, but it dims. A little. That night, after brushing again and applying the paste from old gum, you sit in your sleeping space, holding the scroll in your lap. It's short, faded. O breath of the lotus, open my mouth to peace. Send the serpent away from my root and let the words fall sweet. You read it aloud, voice soft. The night air is cool now, rustling through the open shutters. You lie back, hand resting on your cheek, the faint tingle of the paste sinking into your gums. Your teeth still ache, but not like before. And when sleep comes, it brings a dream. A crocodile floating down the Nile on a reed boat offers you a clove bud and says, chew this and stop worrying. You wake smiling, sort of. The morning begins with a softness in your jaw that feels almost foreign. You stretch, run your tongue along the backs of your teeth and pause. No sharp jab from the back molar. No pulsing ache waiting to bloom behind your cheek. Just the usual fuzziness of morning breath, and a slight twinge where yesterday's vinegar rinse might have worked its magic or at least scared the pain into hiding for a while. You rise slowly from your mat, feeling the cool stone beneath your feet. Outside, the sky is a wide, grey-pink canvas still waiting for the heat of the day to brush it gold. Birds flutter past your open window. Somewhere nearby, someone is already boiling onions. You roll your shoulders, exhale, and reach for your trusty cleaning stick. It's the same Salvadora twig you've used all week, now worn down to half its length with the bristles flaring like a miniature broom. You chew it gently to resoften the fibres, then open your little ceramic jar and dip it into your new mixture, a blend of powdered fennel mint and dried basil gifted by old Gum the Healer. It smells cleaner than your old recipe, more herbal and less grave-like. The brushing begins, rhythmic, gentle. You've learned through painful trial and error not to press too hard. You angle the stick carefully between your teeth, working around the still sensitive spot in your upper jaw. There's no blood this morning, and for the first time in a long while your gums don't recoil from the contact. You spit into the wash basin rinse with water infused with a few drops of date vinegar, and swish it around until your eyes water slightly. Then another rinse, this time plain water. It's a routine now, harsh, yes, but you've come to trust it. As you dry your face with a linen cloth, your mother passes behind you, balancing a basket of dried lentils on her hip. Your mouth smells like basil, she says, half amused. You courting a priest, you grin. Only if he has teeth. She snorts and walks off. You tie on your tunic, step into your sandals, and make your way toward the centre of the neighbourhood. Today is an errand day, herbs to buy, a jar to refill, and a quick visit to the incense maker who promised you a resin chew that supposedly sweetens the breath and softens the stomach. You pass the baker's stalls already open and baking. The smell of bread, warm and faintly sour, fills the air. But you hesitate. You remember yesterday's loaf, gritty, stubborn, and not kind to your molars. You opt instead for a soft date cake wrapped in fig leaf. Easier to chew, less dangerous. As you nibble slowly, a neighbour greets you. It's Ipu once again rubbing his jaw. You try the goose fat paste, he asks. You nod. Burned a little, worked a little. He holds up a clay vial. My cousin brought this from the Delta. It's made with crushed lotus root and honey. You swish, not scrub. You raise your eyebrows. Lotus, supposed to calm the nerves, works on tooth pain too, they say. He hands you the vial to sniff. It's sweet floral and vaguely medicinal. I'd try it, you admit, if it weren't a full day's wages. He grins. Let me know if you want to share. You continue on, ducking beneath an arch where the sunlight slices between slats in perfect geometric lines. At the incense shop, the perfumer greets you with a nod and a half smile. She recognizes the ache in your face everyone here does. I made something for you, she says, pulling out a small cloth-wrapped pouch. Myrrh, mint and resin. Chew it after meals. You trade a polished shell and a broken turquoise bead. She seems pleased. You chew a corner of the resin as you walk home. It's sticky, earthy and strong, like chewing a piece of the temple floor, but in a good way. Your breath smells better instantly. Your tongue tingles. And your teeth feel not clean exactly, but guarded, protected like someone's watching over them. When you reach home, your mother is soaking bread in broth, softening it for the midday meal. She offers you a bowl. You dip the bread, gently tear off a bite-sized corner and chew cautiously. No cracking, no stabbing pain. The broth is warm, the bread mild. You exhale through your nose and eat another piece slower this time, letting the herbs from the resin mix with the simple flavours of onion and lentil. Afterward, you rinse with cool water, then brush again, short strokes, light touch. You sit under the awning, watching dust swirl through a shaft of light, and feel something unfamiliar creeping into your chest. Hope. Maybe not full relief, but hope. Later in the day, you pass by the temple complex where the younger scribes are reciting healing prayers near the reflecting pool. One priest is teaching a boy how to pronounce the name of Sekhmet, goddess of healing. You linger a moment, listening to the soft cadence of the words. You remember old Gum's advice about spells, about speaking to the ache, so under your breath you whisper it again. I release the serpent from my root. I call back the sweetness of breath. The reflection in the water flickers, and maybe it's just the wind, but your jaw feels calm. That night you eat a bowl of rice mash with herbs, chew another piece of resin brush one last time with your twig and basil mint powder, and rinse with lotus water borrowed from Ipu. Your teeth are still yours, still imperfect, but they don't throb. You light a single oil lamp, unroll your mat, and rest your cheek on your folded hand. You sleep, and you dream of an ancient god with golden teeth laughing softly, handing you a toothbrush made of starlight. The dream doesn't leave you, not when the sun creeps into the room, not when your feet first touch the cool earthen floor, and not even as you blink the night from your eyes and sit upright on your straw mat. There it is again, a strange flicker of starlight, a brush made of gold, and the soft voice of that god, with the gleaming teeth saying nothing in particular, but somehow making you feel seen, heard, maybe even understood. And as your hand drifts instinctively toward your jaw, you realize something's different. The pain is still there, yes, tucked away behind your last molar like a pebble that refuses to leave your shoe, but it's quieter, softer, less like a threat, more like a memory. You chew the end of your toothbrush stick with calm focus. The Salvadora twig feels dry today. and the fibres need a little coaxing to open up, but eventually it fans out into the familiar bristle. You dip it into your tooth powder, your new blend fennel seed, dried basil, crushed mint and a pinch of burnt shell powder. You added a drop of honey oil yesterday just to change the taste, and now the powder smells faintly sweet under the dust. You begin brushing slowly the way old gum showed you. Gentle strokes, side to side, circle the gum line, pause when you reach the back molars. That's where the trouble always starts. You hover the stick there, press gently, and no flare. Just a dull soreness like the echo of pain rather than the thing itself. You rinse with date vinegar diluted in warm water, a sharp sting, then plain water, then spit. The ritual feels less like a chore today and more like a quiet conversation between you and your mouth, an agreement maybe. You'll keep brushing, it'll try to behave. You wrap your stick in cloth and step outside. The alley is still shadowed by tall walls, but the light is already bright on the rooftops. Morning noises bounce down toward you. A rooster somewhere, a baby crying in the distance, a slap of wet clothes against stone. You smell wood smoke and chickpeas incense and drying reeds. You make your way toward the house of healing, not because you're in agony, but because it feels like the right thing to do. There's a feeling in your chest today, a kind of stillness that makes you curious. You want to see old gum again. As you pass the grain mills, you stop for a moment to watch the grinding women at work. Their movements are steady arms brushing back and forth across the stone slabs, crushing wheat into dust. You remember the first time you learned the truth that each loaf of bread you eat holds invisible fragments of that stone. Quartz grit, crushed rock. You taste it every time. It explains a lot. A woman looks up from her work, catches your eye and smiles with half her teeth. Still brushing, she asks. Always you reply. Try adding hibiscus ash. Smells nicer. You thank her and move on. By the time you reach the temple courtyard, the sun is already high. You find old gum seated under the fig tree, his baskets arranged in perfect disorder. Bundles of twigs, folded scrolls, cracked bowls filled with half-ground powders. He doesn't look up. You dreamed, he says. You blink. How do you know you smell like quiet? You smile. There was a god, with gold teeth. He grunts. He speaks when the root loosens. You kneel beside him and unwrap your brush. I've been using the fennel basil blend, and rinsing, and humming. He nods approvingly. Good. You're listening. He hands you a strip of linen soaked in a greenish-black paste. New recipe, he says. Willow bark cardamom resin. Wrap it around your brush. Softens pain. Coats the root. You accept it gratefully. The linen smells like mint-wet stone and something sharp like pine sap or vinegar left in the sun. He leans close. You must understand, young one, the tooth remembers. Remembers what everything he says, every bite, every lie, every word you should have swallowed. You blink, unsure if he's joking. He's not. He hands you a scroll more fragile than the others. You can barely read the faded ink, but the title stands out. Rites for easing the mouth's memory. Read it aloud, he says, before you sleep. You nod. He adds a tiny jar to your bundle. For polishing, he murmurs, use it sparingly. Twice a moon. What's in it, you ask? Salt, pearl dust, ground date pits, and prayer. You raise an eyebrow, whose prayer he smiles. Mine. You walk home slowly, your satchel heavier with gifts, your heart oddly lighter. At home, your mother eyes the jar. He's still giving out spells instead of salves, they work, you say. She shrugs. Maybe for you. You eat a soft lunch lentil mash with olive oil and coriander. Nothing sharp, nothing hard. You soak your bread first. Chew slowly. Breathe between bites. The pain remains at a distance. Afterward, you prepare your brush. You wrap the paste-soaked linen around the tip and scrub gently, listening to the squish of the fibres and the rhythm of your breath. The taste is strong, bitter, earthy, a hint of warmth at the back of your tongue, but your teeth feel smooth afterward. Coated. Protected. You take the polishing jar, dab a small bit onto your finger and rub it along your front teeth. Gritty, silky, faintly sweet. You hum softly while you do it, not because you have to, but because you want to. That evening, as the sun sets behind the walls, you find a quiet corner of your room, unroll the scroll and whisper the spell aloud, to the memory in the molar, to the grief behind the gum, to the silence between the bite, I offer this peace. May sweetness return. You sit with the words a while, letting them settle into your chest. You brush again before bed, twice this time. Once with the twig, once with the cloth. You chew a bit of frankincense resin for breath, sip warm water and lie back on your mat, the linen cool against your cheek. As you drift off, you feel the ache again, not sharp but present. Like a visitor sitting quietly in the next room. You don't chase it away. You just let it rest. And in your dream, you're back beneath the fig tree. Old Gum is there. He smiles, shows you his empty mouth and says, "Even teeth know when to let go." You wake to silence, and for the first time in weeks, the silence is not the kind that holds its breath waiting for pain. It's peaceful, undisturbed. As if the world has agreed to let your mouth rest just a little longer. You lie still for a moment on your mat, one hand resting on your cheek, expecting the familiar pulse in your jaw to greet you like an old annoying friend. But there's nothing. No throb, no sting, no soreness when you flex your jaw or press your tongue to that rebellious molar. It's still there, of course it is, but the weight of it has lifted. You almost don't know what to do with yourself. Still, habit is stronger than hope. You roll over, reach for your toothbrush twig and chew the end gently until the bristles soften. The Salvadora branch creaks a little. It's worn from weeks of loyal service. You consider retiring it soon, maybe pressing it between cloth and burying it near the garden like the old stories say, to do with tools that have served well. You dip the twig into your now well-refined powder, a soothing mix of fennel seed, basil, crushed mint, and a recent addition hibiscus ash. You tap it once against the rim of your little jar and begin to brush. This time it feels like a ritual, not a war. You clean gently, slowly. Each stroke of the bristles is like a thank you to your body. The front teeth, the canines, the smoother edge of your molars all pass under your brush with no protest. Even the molar, the old troublemaker. You press a little harder there, testing. Nothing. You spit into your bowl and rinse with your usual mixture warm water laced with date vinegar and a hint of lemon balm. The bitterness lingers on your tongue, but the flavour is clean, almost fragrant. When you look up, your mother is already at the hearth, stirring pot of lentils and humming to herself. No groaning this morning, she says, not looking up. I think it's gone, you answer. She stirs once more, then lifts the spoon and taps it twice on the rim. Nothing stays gone forever, she replies, but sometimes it sleeps. After breakfast, stewed onions, lentils and soft barley cakes, you step outside into the waking city. The air is dry sharp with the scent of clay and warming stone. Children chase one another between vendor stalls. The baker's apprentice is already dusted in flour, waving at passers-by with dough-covered fingers. You wave back. You have nowhere urgent to go today. No pain to chase. No healer to visit. But your feet carry you anyway toward the temple, toward the fig tree, toward the small square where old Gum's mat used to sit. When you arrive, the spot is empty. The fig tree's branches sway gently in the breeze, and beneath it a few stray twigs lie scattered in the dirt. No scrolls, no baskets, no jars. You sit anyway. The ground is warm. The silence is kind. Eventually a young boy in apprentice robes passes by carrying a bundle of linen. He pauses, looks at you and says, "He went to the river again. Says the water is better at remembering things." You nod. It feels right. So you follow. The walk to the river is slow and quiet. You pass palm groves, the low hum of bees near the temple garden, and a pair of white herons fishing in silence. At the water's edge, reeds whisper in the breeze. And there he is, old Gum, sitting cross-legged ankles in the mud, his fingers lazily tracing circles on the surface of the water. You hesitate, then approach. "I didn't know where else to go," you say softly. He glances at you. His smile is small but wide enough to show the gaps where teeth used to be. "You came back," he says. "I think the ache is gone." He nods. "Then sit. Let's not chase it." You sit beside him. The mud is cool, seeping gently through your sandals. The river stretches endlessly before you, smooth, patient, unreadable. "I brushed this morning," you say. No sting. No bleeding. "I pressed my tongue against the sore spot and it wasn't sore." "Then you're learning," he replies. "What now?" you ask. Now he says you remember. You blink. "Remember the pain?" you ask. "No," he says. "Remember the care. Pain leaves, but care should stay. You don't brush only to stop the ache. You brush to greet your breath, to speak gently, to carry your words well." You nod slowly. He reaches into his satchel and pulls out a new twig, longer, smoother, carefully carved with tiny notches down the side. "For your next ache," he says, "or someone else's." You accept it with both hands. The moment feels ceremonial. "I dreamed again," you say. "Last night." He raises an eyebrow. "There was a field of mint, a goddess with a silver comb. She brushed my teeth like she was brushing my hair." Old Gum chuckles. "That was probably Sekhmet. She has very strong opinions about molars." You both laugh. The river ripples beside you. After a long silence, he speaks again. "Do you know why I have no teeth?" You shake your head. "I gave them away," he says, "one by one. Every time someone told me their pain, I let one go. Not to pity, but to make space. Space for what? For silence, for wisdom, for better listening." You sit with that for a while. The wind rustles the reeds. A boat glides by in the distance, its single white sail catching the sun. Eventually he stands. "No one teaches us how to stop hurting," he says. "But you've learned how to keep living while it stops." You rise too. He places a hand on your shoulder. "Don't forget," he says. "I won't." You walk home slowly, the new twig tucked safely in your satchel, its notched sides warm from your palm. When you return, your mother hands you a bowl of fruit figs, sliced melons, soft pomegranate seeds. You chew slowly, mindfully, gratefully. That night you brush with the old twig one last time. You rinse. You hum. You whisper the spell. "I greet the morning without fear. I thank the ache for its lesson. I carry my breath in peace." Then you lie down, the new twig resting beside your mat, untouched, waiting. You fall asleep with your jaw relaxed, your mouth soft, your breath smooth. And in your dream you walk along the Nile barefoot, humming a tune you've never heard but somehow know by heart. A voice behind you says, "That one's for the molars," and you smile. You wake with a strange sensation in your mouth, not pain, not discomfort, but clarity. As though your teeth, long preoccupied with surviving another day of hard bread and rough powders, have finally taken a full breath. There's a stillness in your jaw, a softness in your cheek, and for the first time in what feels like 100 mornings, no dread waits behind your molars. You lie there for a while, staring at the ceiling, your hands folded over your chest, just listening. Listening to your breath, to the faint cooing of pigeons on the roof, to the soft footfalls of someone outside sweeping the path. The ache is gone, truly gone. Not just sleeping, not waiting in ambush, just gone. Still, you don't trust it entirely. Pain, you've learned, is like the Nile, it recedes, but it always returns. So you rise with respect. You move slowly, carefully. You reach for your brush, a new Salvadora twig, straight and strong, wrapped in fresh linen, and chew the end gently to break the fibers open. The tip blossoms like a soft, spiky flower. You dip it into your tooth powder, now a well-refined recipe. that you trust crushed fennel seed, powdered mint, a touch of basil ash, and just recently added hibiscus flower ground into a pale pink dust. The scent is pleasant, cool and herbal, with a floral sweetness that makes brushing feel almost indulgent. You begin the ritual. Front teeth first, small circles, slow strokes, then the sides, then the molars. You pay special attention to the back corners, not with fear, but with patience. Your gums don't flinch, your teeth don't throb. You spit, rinse and hum softly, letting the vibration rise through your throat and settle behind your nose. You wipe your mouth with the edge of your sleeve, feeling something like pride. Your mother catches you smiling as you step into the courtyard. "Your teeth are quiet today," she notes, handing you a warm cloth for your face. "They're behaving," you reply. She nods satisfied, but you're still restless, not with pain, but with wonder. What now? What do you do when the ache stops? You decide to find out. You pack a small satchel with your brush, a vial of powder, a strip of mint resin, and a worn scroll. Not old gum spell, but the newer one given by the priest of Heka last week. You haven't read it since. Today feels like a good day. You set off toward the temple of Heka. It's not far, but you take the longer route past the potter's kilns, where the air smells of clay and fire, past the scribe's courtyard, where young boys copy line after line of sacred text, and past the river's edge, where laundry flutters like prayer flags. You pass a woman selling pomegranate seeds in tiny woven cups, and she presses one into your hand with a wink. "You look like someone who bit through trouble," she says. You laugh and keep walking. The temple is cooler than the outside world, its stone walls shaded and covered with painted glyphs. Figures with open mouths, speaking spells, singing hymns, exhaling golden breath. You greet the priest. He remembers you. You've returned. "I wanted to understand," you say. He leads you again to the chamber of teeth. You've seen it before, but this time you look deeper. The walls are covered in carved reliefs of open jaws, some with perfect teeth, some with cracks, chips, and gaps. Each is labelled with notes: spiritual, emotional, medical. There's an entire section on teeth that ache from silence, another on gums that swell from unshed truth. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs. The body listens, even when we don't. He offers you a seat and pours a small bowl of infused water, peppermint, dried fig and barley essence. You drink slowly. The flavour is unfamiliar but refreshing. He places a small clay tablet in front of you. Write what your teeth have taught you. You hesitate, then begin. You write about pain, about bread and stone, about mint powders and vinegar burns, about old gum and river walks and your mother's dry wisdom. You write about the night the ache disappeared, and how silence feels different when it isn't forced. You finish. The priest reads it, then smiles. "You're ready," he says, "for what to teach someone else." You leave the temple in the late afternoon, the sun low and amber over the city. You chew a bit of mint resin as you walk, savouring the sweetness, the chewiness, the way it stretches the corners of your mouth just enough to make you feel awake. At home, you find a small bundle waiting near your mat. It's from your neighbour. Inside a crooked twig, half a pouch of powder, and a note that says simply, "It hurts when I laugh." You smile. You sit on the ground, unwrap the twig and begin trimming the end. You boil water for rinsing. You crush a few extra mint leaves into the powder just to be kind. You walk the bundle across the courtyard and knock once on her door. She opens it. Eyes tired, cheeks puffy. You hand it over. She nods, says nothing, but smiles. That night you sit under the stars with your mother eating a bowl of soft rice and honeyed dates. You chew slowly, thoughtfully. Afterward you brush once with the twig, once with the cloth. You rinse. You hum. You light a small oil lamp and read the scroll. This time you recite it aloud. I welcome stillness. I thank the mouth for its warning. I release the pain that taught me care, and I offer peace to the next voice that needs it. You sleep deeply, and in your dream, A child is brushing their teeth with your old twig smiling up at you with cheeks full of light. You hand them a scroll and say nothing. Because some things they already understand. The ache doesn't come back. Not the next morning, not the one after, not even when your mother hands you a fresh loaf of bread so dense it could be used to patch a wall. You chew it slowly out of habit, not fear. You brace for the sting, the pressure, that deep, quiet throb behind your molar. But nothing happens. Nothing except a faint smile that spreads across your face without permission. You still brush, still rinse, still hum. But it feels different now. The urgency is gone. No longer are you brushing in self-defense as if every stroke is a battle against invisible attackers. Now it's a kind of ceremony, a quiet thank you to your mouth for surviving, a way of saying we got through it. We're still here. You chew the end of your Salvadora twig, slowly split the bristles with care and brush with the newest version of your powder-crushed fennel basil ash, mint hibiscus flower, and a pinch of date resin for sweetness. It smells like a summer garden. It tastes like clean wind. After rinsing with warm vinegar water, you sit on the step outside your home and press your thumb along your jaw. Still quiet. You lean your head back and let the sun warm your face. Then you hear it. A short yelp, followed by hurried steps. You open your eyes to find a boy barely 8 standing at your door, hand clamped to his cheek. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. The swelling at the edge of his mouth says everything. You've seen that expression before. In your own reflection. In the faces of friends. In the early mornings when sleep was a stranger. You gesture for him to come in. He does. You guide him to sit on the stool by the basin. Prepare a small bowl of warm water and begin to mix your paste-powdered basil cardamom ash, a drop of honey. You wrap a linen cloth around his finger and show him how to dab the gum, not press, not smear, just dab. He flinches at the first touch. You nod. It stings. Then it stops. He winces again, then breathes. You hand him a small reed to chew a splintered brush tip soaked in mint oil. He bites down slowly, carefully. He doesn't say thank you. He doesn't have to. He walks out a little straighter than he walked in. Later that afternoon, your neighbour arrives with her sister. The older woman carries a jar of honey and a linen pouch filled with ground clove. Her eyes are tired, her jaw wrapped in cloth, but she smiles anyway. You helped the boy, she says. I tried you, answer. Try with me too. You nod. Invite her in. You make a paste for her from hibiscus myrrh and a touch of vinegar warmed by the sun. She hums while you mix it. Not a melody, just a sound. You wonder if someone taught her that, or if it came naturally. As she leaves, she presses a small ceramic jar into your hand. Inside, crushed rose petals. Add it to the powder, she says, for the days when pain still visits in memory. You keep it near your brush jar. That night you brush with extra care. Not because of fear, but because others are watching now. You imagine their teeth echoing yours. Their molars, their breath, their fatigue, their relief. You brush as if each bristle sends a ripple through the city, calming every throb hiding in someone's jaw. The next morning a young mother arrives with her daughter. She speaks softly, barely louder than the wind. She doesn't eat, she says, because it hurts. The girl says nothing. She only leans her head into her mother's side. You kneel beside her, offer her a soft reed to hold, and let her smell the powder floral clean safe. You show her how to chew the stick gently. You sing the first line of the prayer just loud enough for her to hear. I greet my breath with kindness. She whispers the next line. I greet my pain with calm. You brush for her the first time, then hand her the twig. She takes it. She brushes. And she smiles. By the end of the week, your courtyard has become a place people pass through on their way to somewhere better. They come with aches and questions. They leave with twigs, powders, songs, and silence. You begin keeping bundles ready, one for sharp pain, one for swollen gums, one for bad breath, one for mourning. Because pain isn't always about teeth. You know that now. You even start writing on palm leaves bits of linen, the backs of broken tiles, recipes, prayers, instructions for brushing, gentle reminders like rinse with warmth, hum before silence. Pain is not shame. Brush the ache, not the anger. You give them out like gifts. You find them tucked into baskets days later, pinned to doors, scratched into walls near the ovens. Your mother watches all of this from her seat near the hearth. One night, as you prepare the last powder of the day, she speaks. You were in pain for weeks. You nod, and now you help everyone else. You nod again. She smiles. That's how the mouth heals, isn't it? Not just when it stops hurting, but when it starts speaking peace. You sit beside her. You grind fennel together, passing the bowl back and forth like a ritual. She adds a pinch of rose petals without a word. You brush before bed, not because you're in pain, but because you're grateful. You rinse, you hum, and when you lie down, the brush rests beside you like a promise. In your dream, you're walking through the city at dawn. Everyone is brushing their teeth, in silence, together. And above them a voice not loud, not divine, just clear says, "The ache ends when we remember each other." You wake smiling, not because the pain is gone, but because something else has taken its place. It doesn't start with a proclamation. There's no parade, no scroll nailed to the temple wall, no incense-thick ceremony beneath the painted ceilings of Heka's shrine. It starts the way everything starts in your part of the city, with a whisper. At first, it's just the miller's wife telling her sister that her gums stopped bleeding after using your hibiscus powder. Then it's the bread vendor mentioning to a customer between sales of barley loaves that his jaw doesn't lock up anymore when he chews. And then the fish seller's apprentice swears loudly to anyone who will listen that your mint resin made his breath sweet enough for the gods themselves. And suddenly, people begin appearing at your doorstep, not in droves, not in chaos, but in steady trickles, one in the morning, two in the afternoon, another before sunset. A woman with a swollen cheek and soft eyes. A boy too embarrassed to speak, clutching a cloth bundle that smells faintly of blood. A scribe whose tongue aches when he chants. A widow who hasn't eaten a full meal in 3 days. They all come for the same reason. Their mouths hurt. And someone told them you listen. You don't say much. You don't need to. You greet them with a warm cloth for their face, and a small bowl of rinsing water warmed with basil and mint. You give them a twig if they've none trimmed and chewed into a soft brush, and a pinch of powder made to suit their pain. You don't just mix for mouths anymore. You mix for grief, for shame, for silence, for hunger, for heartbreak, for words that got stuck behind teeth and never made it into the air. You name your powders accordingly. Quiet comfort for fresh aches, river ash for long-held pain, honey root for children's mouths, peace bark for those who've already lost a tooth, white wind, a rare blend of lotus clove and pearl powder for the temple singers. Each bundle is wrapped in linen and tied with reed string. You draw a small glyph on the outside, simple and soft, a jaw, a wave, a breath, a seed. You don't charge anything, but people bring gifts. A slice of melon, a handful of pomegranate seeds, a scrap of silk, a laugh. Your mother watches this all unfold from her spot by the oven. She doesn't interrupt, but every so often you catch her tucking dried herbs into your satchel before you leave, or replacing the rinsing jars without saying a word. "You're feeding the whole quarter with your powders now," she mutters one morning as she kneads dough. "Feeding mouths," you reply. She shakes her head, but you catch her smiling. One evening, a young man arrives from the far side of the city. He's dressed in temple apprentice robes, neat, but worn the hem patched with thread. He kneels on your mat and presents a small scroll sealed with a bit of hardened beeswax. "It's from the archivists at the House of Life," he says. "They're collecting remedies that aren't written yet." You unroll the scroll. Inside is a single sentence. We've heard your hum carries through the walls. You don't know how to respond. He asks if he may watch you work. You let him. He writes everything down: how you prepare your paste, how you chew your twig, how you fold the linen for wrapping. He notes the order of ingredients and the way you hum when applying the powder. But when he asks why you hum, you pause. It started when I hurt, you say. It stayed when I healed. He nods, writes that down too. Soon, others follow. Not all with pain, some come out of curiosity. A scribe who wants to copy your wall phrases, a priest who offers to bless your rinse bowls, a musician who asks if he can set your brushing rhythm to lyre music. You say yes to all of it. You're not a gatekeeper, you're a door, and people keep walking through. You begin hanging simple instructions on your courtyard wall brush when the moon rises. Speak kindly to the pain. Rinse with your eyes closed and listen to your breath. Children recite them like poems. Elders mutter them before bed. Your words once whispered in pain become part of someone else's ritual. One night, just as the stars begin to brighten, a stranger arrives. He wears robes darker than any you've seen before, fine linen embroidered with gold thread. A nobleman, maybe more. His hands are soft, but his face is tired. I've heard your powders hold peace, he says. You nod. He doesn't explain his ache. He doesn't have to. You give him a blend of rose ash, myrrh resin and crushed pomegranate peel. He breathes it in and tears well in his eyes, not from the powder, but from whatever he's been holding. He stays for an hour, says little, brushes once, rinses twice, then leaves without another word. The next day a small sack of saffron appears beside your door. You don't ask who left it. You add it to your rarest blend, sunroot you call it. You save it for the ones who have stopped believing they'll ever feel whole again. The ache that started this entire journey, the one behind your own molar, hasn't returned. But sometimes when you're alone in the courtyard brushing your teeth by moonlight, you think you can still feel it, not as pain but as memory, a reminder, a companion. You whisper, "Thank you for visiting. You taught me the weight of breath." You write that on a shard of broken pottery and place it near your wall scrolls. People start leaving their own notes. I chewed without fear today. My son smiled with all his teeth. The powder made my dreams sweet. The ache brought me here. The care let me stay. You read each one, then brush, then hum. By now, brushing your teeth doesn't just signal the beginning or end of a day, it marks a moment of return. Not return to silence or stillness, but to self, to awareness, to the part of you that once ached and no longer does, and to the part that still remembers why. The ache is gone, long gone in fact. You chew without fear, you speak without tension in your jaw, you eat soft fruits, crispy flatbreads, even roasted nuts, and the twinge never returns. But you still brush each morning with care, not because your mouth demands it, but because your heart does. You wake early like always. You chew the end of a fresh twig, feeling the fibres split and soften between your molars. You grind your powder by hand, slowly savouring the scent of crushed fennel, mint and basil ash. You mix in a little hibiscus for colour, a pinch of dried pomegranate peel for brightness, and a hint of powdered clove just because it reminds you of the river air on cold mornings. You brush with gentle circles, humming under your breath the same way you've taught dozens of others to do now. Perhaps more than dozens. You've lost count. Your courtyard is quiet at this hour. But not for long, because ever since word spread, ever since people began whispering about the one who brushes with prayers and listens with his eyes, your home has become something more. A meeting place, a resting space, a centre. You don't claim to be a healer. You've never worn temple robes or spoken the sacred names in front of a painted altar. But still they come. They come with chipped molars and swollen gums. But they also come with clenched jaws, bitten tongues, locked voices and burdens so tightly packed behind their teeth, they can no longer chew without grief, and you greet them all the same. You don't ask for details unless they're offered. You don't diagnose, you don't prescribe. You prepare a twig, you warm some rinse water. You mix a powder suited to the season, the breath, the silence between their sentences. You wrap it all in cloth and give them space to speak or not to. That morning a woman arrives holding her cheek, her eyes red-rimmed not just from pain but from the kind of weeping that comes after too many days of pretending to be fine. "My husband died last season," she says. "I haven't eaten properly since." You nod. You prepare a paste of cardamom honey and ground lotus. It smells like comfort, like something between medicine and memory. She brushes, slowly. The rinse dribbles down her chin. She doesn't wipe it. When she's done, she whispers, "That was the first thing that didn't hurt." She leaves a polished stone on your mat. You keep it. Later, a young boy arrives, sent by his mother. He chews a stick already, one of yours, worn down to the length of his palm. "I think my tooth is loose," he says. You check. It is. It's supposed to be, you assure him. "It means you're growing." He nods, then asks, "Does that mean the pain is a good sign?" You pause. Not good, you say, but important. He thinks about that, then nods again. You give him a new stick and a packet of mint powder wrapped in a fig leaf. He tucks it into his pouch and skips away. That afternoon, 2 scribes return. Not the ones from before Newface's younger hands. They carry with them scrolls filled with teeth-shaped illustrations and notes from other towns. They've come to learn, but not just from you. They want to see the wall, the one you've covered with phrases. It started simply one line scribbled on a strip of bark, then another on a shard of pottery, then more pressed into clay, carved into soft stone, painted on linen, whispered and written until the entire wall was full. Some lines are yours, some were left behind. Some appeared overnight unsigned. The ache taught me to listen. My mouth no longer stings when I say his name. I brush in silence so I can hear myself return. The scribes ask to copy them. You allow it. They ask what you call this place. You shrug. It doesn't need a name, you say. But that night you sit by the wall and wonder. Not about titles or temples, but about how far words travel once they leave the body. How a whisper shared by a person with clean breath and calm gums might travel through the city like wind through papyrus fields. You light an oil lamp, take your brush, and clean your teeth, slowly looking up at the stars as you do. You've started brushing with your eyes open now. Not always, but sometimes. As if the sky needs to witness your ritual too. And when you rinse, you think about all the people doing the same right now, maybe in their own homes, maybe in silence, maybe whispering the same words you once clung to. I forgive the ache. I thank the breath, and I offer my mouth to peace. In the morning, a young man arrives with a familiar face. He kneels and holds out a folded cloth. "I found old gum," he says. You blink. He's well, the young man continues. Sits by the river, talks to no one. But when I mentioned you, he smiled. You open the cloth. Inside is a twig, darker than most, sanded smooth, with 3 small notches carved near the base. You run your thumb over them, and you feel something return, not pain, not sorrow, but the root of where you began. You thank the young man and send him away with a fresh blend of cinnamon and lemon peel. Then you sit and unwrap the twig. You boil water. You hum. You brush. And when you sleep that night, you dream of old gum sitting by the river, carving another twig, humming your melody. Not his, yours. Because what you once received, you've now returned, and it echoes still. You're halfway through your morning brushing when the knock comes 3 gentle taps against the wooden gate that echo like distant footsteps across a marble hall. You pause not out of alarm, but with the quiet instinct that someone outside is carrying more than just a toothache. You spit into the clay bowl rinse with warm mint water and dry your lips with a corner of your tunic. Then you walk to the gate barefoot, brushing dust from your palms. When you open it, a woman stands there alone, her robe travel-stained and her sandals caked with white dust. Her posture is upright, but her face carries fatigue like a veil, and her right hand cradles her cheek with practiced tenderness. "I've come from the salt village," she says, her voice rough with the dryness of too many unspoken things. "They told me you know how to make the pain leave." You say nothing at first. You've learned that people often speak louder with what they don't say. You gesture for her to enter. She moves slowly, carefully, as if she's afraid to disturb even the air. She does not ask for water. She does not sit until you nod. She does not remove her hand from her cheek until you offer her a warm cloth steeped in basil and fennel. She holds it to her face, closes her eyes, and exhales like she hasn't let her breath out fully in weeks. You grind the powder fresh. You could have used yesterday's batch, it was good. Balanced and soft, but something about her silence tells you she needs something gentler. You select hibiscus petals dried over 6 days, basil leaf ground fine as sand, a whisper of clove, a touch of honey root to ease the edges. You press the blend into a shallow bowl, hand her a fresh twig already frayed at the tip and motion for her to begin. She brushes slowly, not hesitantly but with ceremony, each stroke deliberate, each pause purposeful. She hums very faintly under her breath. When she's done, she rinses, then sits back and speaks for the first time in several long minutes. "My son died last spring," she says. "He was 12. I've had this ache in my mouth ever since." You nod. Not because you understand her pain, you don't, but because you've seen it before. Not always in mothers, but in people whose grief became physical. It settles in the jaw, you've learned, in the throat, in the place where words once lived. "I thought I was grieving with my heart," she says, "but maybe it lodged in my mouth instead." You hand her a soft cloth now, warm from the sun. She presses it to her lips and you notice her jaw relax slightly. She stays for tea, barley water steeped with mint and a slice of boiled fig. She doesn't speak much after that. She doesn't need to. When she leaves, she hands you a shell, polished and smoothed, worn to a near-perfect oval. "It was his," she says. You accept it, bow your head, and place the shell beside old Gum's last twig beneath the fig tree, where offerings gather like petals after a spring wind. Later that day, more visitors arrive. A boy about 10 with a cracked molar from biting into an unripe almond. An older woman who says she hasn't brushed her teeth since the rains last season. A scholar with ink-stained fingers and a nervous twitch in his cheek, who confesses, "I think I chew my thoughts." You prepare for each of them. You tailor your powders not just to their pain, but to their posture. You've learned to read teeth, but more importantly, you've learned to read breath, the tightness in their shoulders, the way their fingers hover near their lips, the way they wince not when chewing, but when speaking. By the time the sun begins its descent, your courtyard is still humming with the echo of rinses and whispered verses. You've begun placing small bowls of rose ash near the benches, not because it heals anything specific, but because the scent reminds people to soften. In the early evening, 2 young temple initiates arrive. They kneel politely and ask if they may copy your wall of phrases into their practice scrolls. You agree. They sit beside your herb shelf, transcribing with quiet precision. I brush not to clean, but to listen. Rinsing is how I forgive myself. The ache reminded me I'm still here. One of them pauses halfway through copying a line. "Did you write all of these?" he asks. You shake your head. "No. Many were left behind." He nods solemnly and continues writing. As night falls, your mother appears with 2 bowls of lentil stew and a plate of soft bread. "You didn't eat again," she says, handing you the heavier bowl. "I forgot." "No," she replies, sitting beside you. You remembered everyone else. You share the food in silence. Afterward, you sit by the fig tree, brushing your teeth with slow, thoughtful care. The sky is deep indigo now. One of the stars blinks faintly behind a passing cloud, then reappears like breath returning. You light an oil lamp and write a new scroll, your brush laid across your lap. She came with pain behind her tongue, not in her words but in the space where they used to live. She brushed gently, and when she left, her breath sounded like spring rain on stone. You tuck the scroll between two others and turn to head inside. Just as you reach the doorway, there's one last knock. You open the gate to find a girl standing with a basket in her arms. Inside, a curled cat fast asleep, paws tucked beneath its chin. She holds out the basket. "She's for you," the girl says. You blink. Why she only sleeps beside people who hum. You smile and accept the basket. There's a stick tied to the handle, freshly carved with 4 tiny glyphs along its length. Breathwater, silence and light. On the back of the stick, one final message for the ache you never told anyone about. You say, "Thank you." The girl bows once and walks into the night. You carry the cat inside, place her near your mat and sit beside her with your brush in hand. You chew the twig, dip it in your blend, you brush, you hum. The cat purrs and you sleep. The cat stays. She doesn't ask permission. She doesn't wait for invitation. She simply appears each morning like mist rolling through the alleyways, and she settles herself beneath the fig tree as if she's always belonged there. At first, you expect her to wander off, perhaps to chase shadows or curl up on someone else's doorstep, but she stays. She sleeps beside the rinsing bowls, her ears flicking to the rhythm of brushing. She watches you grind powder with the slow patience of a river stone. She blinks at visitors without judgment, and when someone speaks too loudly or moves too fast, she simply turns away, eyes half-lidded, reminding everyone that healing like cats cannot be rushed. You never name her. Somehow it feels wrong to do so. People call her all kind of things, Whisker Herb Figlet the listener, but you call her nothing at all. Not because she means less, but because she means more. She's part of the rhythm now, part of the ritual. You start measuring time by her movements. Dawn when she stretches, noon when she yawns, evening when she curls beside your mat and purrs without sound. She becomes your quiet partner, and soon she becomes everyone's. Visitors begin noticing her before they notice you. A nervous boy calms when she brushes against his leg. A grieving widow pauses mid-sentence when the cat climbs gently into her lap. A woman with a deep clenched jaw opens her mouth, not for brushing, but to laugh when the cat paws playfully at her shawl. She senses what hurt someone says. You nod. And maybe she does. The energy in your courtyard begins to change. It was always a place for pain to settle, to soften, to be held without shame. But now it becomes something more. A place not just for relief, but for return. People start coming back even after their pain fades. They say I've kept brushing, but I miss the air here. They say it's easier to remember how to breathe when I'm near the fig tree. They say I think my gums are fine, but I wanted to leave this, and they hand you bundles, dried petals, broken tiles, with etched words, pouches of powdered herbs, folded cloth with prayers stitched inside. You start writing more. Not just scrolls or verses, but little guides tucked between the bowls and brushes like hidden offerings. How to brush after bad dreams. A rinse for loneliness that arrives in the evening. How to hold silence without letting it bite your tongue. Why your tooth still aches even though it's gone. You begin tying these to the limbs of the fig tree. Some flutter down like blessings. Children pick them up and read them aloud softly like they're sharing secrets with the wind. One morning a woman arrives with a baby swaddled close to her chest. The child is toothless, barely old enough to sit upright, but the woman's eyes are hollow. He clenches when I cry, she says. I think he's holding something for me. You don't speak. Instead, you dip a soft cloth in rose water and hand it to her. You show her how to brush her own teeth slowly, gently as the child watches. She hums the brushing song. The baby quiets. When she finishes rinsing, she breathes deeper. Her shoulders loosen. The tightness in her jaw softens. She doesn't thank you not with words, but she leaves a ribbon tied to the cat's tail. The cat doesn't flinch. She just flicks it once and goes back to sleeping. That afternoon, a man arrives carrying a reed flute in a reed basket. He's silent, but his fingers tremble. He watches as you mix a paste of clove and cinnamon, as you chew the tip of a new twig, as you brush your own teeth with calm precision. After he brushes, he sits in the corner. He opens the basket, lifts the flute, plays one clear single note. You feel it in your bones. I stopped playing after my brother died, he says. He taught me how to breathe into the music. You nod. He places the flute on your mat. Let someone else find their breath. That night you polish it with a cloth soaked in mint water and place it beneath the listening wall. Among the tokens people leave behind, feathers, written prayers, pieces of broken combs, strings of dried flowers, and one molar wrapped in linen. The cat curls next to it as if guarding memory itself. That evening, as the stars appear one by one, you sit with your back against the fig tree, brushing slowly the powder, soft and fragrant myrrh, mint and rose petal ash. You hum a low, steady rhythm. The cat purrs. You write a scroll before sleeping. Pain came to my mouth as a teacher. I met it with bitterness and silence. But I listened. I brushed. I waited. And when the cat came, I remembered that some things don't need to be fixed, only witnessed. You tuck the scroll beneath your mat. In your dream, the cat is walking across rooftops, dropping twigs from her mouth. Each one lands at a stranger's feet. Each person kneels, picks up the twig and begins to brush. The rooftops hum, and far below your courtyard glows with soft light filled with people sitting in silence, not waiting for healing, but remembering it. You wake to the soft sound of sweeping, gentle, deliberate strokes brushing across the stones of your courtyard. Not rushed, not loud. The kind of sweeping that has rhythm, as if each movement is part of something older than habit. Something closer to prayer. At first you think it's your mother, but her sleeping mat is still full, her breathing slow and steady. So you rise, step barefoot onto the cool floor and push open the door. It's the temple apprentice, the same one who used to copy lines from your listening wall, crouched over his reed scroll with ink-stained fingers. Today he holds a straw broom in one hand and a linen pouch of crushed herbs in the other. His feet are bare, his eyes soft with concentration. I came early, he says. Dust settles before the sun does. I thought I'd help. You nod. No words needed. The cat winds between your ankles, gives one long blink at the apprentice, and curls beside the rinsing bowls like a guardian of morning rituals. You begin yours. Today's twig is from the tamarind branch, a little more bitter, a little more brittle, but sacred in its own way. You chew the end until it fans into bristles. Dip it into your latest blend, dried orange peel, basil, crushed mint, and a pinch of fig bark. As you brush, you hum not out of duty, but because the courtyard feels expectant, as if the day is listening. You rinse, spit. Sit beneath the fig tree mortar in hand, herbs lined up like alphabet letters waiting to be spoken. And they come. They always do. First, a boy whose tooth hurts when he lies. Then a girl who claims her jaw tightens when she's near her mother's voice. A baker arrives with flour still on her sleeves, explaining she hasn't smiled in 3 weeks. The moment I try something pulls in my cheek. You mix clove and rose for her. You whisper smile slowly. She nods and holds the bowl as if it's a newborn. By mid-morning the courtyard hums. A man arrives with his son, young curious, holding a twisted stick between his fingers. He says he wants to be like the cat the father explains. Always brushing, always quiet. You kneel before the boy, hand him a reed pouch with powder and whisper, then always be gentle. The boy smiles, an unafraid smile, all gaps and hope. The temple apprentice joins you by the herb table. He grinds basil with care, counting each stroke. Do you remember when I asked for lines to copy? He asks. I remember. I never told you, he says, but my own ache wasn't in my mouth. It was in the words I couldn't speak. Copying yours taught me how to write my own. You nod. Sometimes healing sounds like truth finally spoken aloud, and sometimes it's just the brush of a twig against molars. After lunch, a woman arrives carrying a bowl of sand. She wears a black shawl, her hands shaking slightly. She places the bowl at your feet and says, "This is from the place I stopped praying." You don't ask why. You just bow your head, boil water, and mix a blend of lavender, basil, cinnamon, and the ashes of a prayer scroll left behind by a boy who once wrote, "I forgive the ache even if it hasn't forgiven me." You offer her the bowl. She brushes with her eyes closed. She spits, rinses, spits again. When she opens her eyes, her jaw's trembling, but her lips are loose. "I think I can begin again," she whispers. She pours a handful of sand under the fig tree. "To remind the earth where I paused," she says. The cat sits beside the mound, watches, approves. That evening, just before the sun disappears, a woman in blue robes arrives, elegant, poised, but clearly exhausted. She removes her sandals before entering kneels beside the herb table and says, "I'm not here for myself. I'm here for my sister." She doesn't brush, you ask. She doesn't speak, the woman answers. She hasn't since the harvest ended. You prepare 2 bundles, one with soft mint and fennel, one with rose and sage. You wrap each in cloth, tie each with thread. For her, you say, handing over the softer one, and this one for you. She doesn't argue. Before she leaves, she writes a note on a scrap of palm paper. Some teeth carry silence. Others carry songs. Yours carry listening. You add it to the listening wall. Later, as dusk settles, you sit beside the cat and crush marjoram between your fingers. The scent lingers, bright, sharp, honest. The apprentice places a folded cloth beside you. Inside is a new twig carved with 4 tiny symbols, water, wind, silence, and a smile. "I made it for you," he says. "For the days when your ache returns." You press it to your heart. You thank him without words. That night you light a small oil lamp brush, slowly using the new twig. Your powder is gentle tonight, fig bark and fennel, rose ash and honey root. A blend for memory, a blend for quiet. As you rinse, you whisper a blessing you haven't said in years to the ache that taught me the shape of my breath, to the breath that carried me through every word I couldn't say, to the silence that remains. May you never be lonely again. You place the new twig beside your mat. The cat purrs once, then the night settles in. You begin the morning the way you always do now, under the fig tree back. Straight eyes, half closed, a fresh twig in your hand and a bowl of warm rinse water cooling beside your foot. The courtyard is still not silent, but filled with the kind of sounds that don't need your attention. A soft bird call, the distant grinding of flower stones, the lazy flick of the cat's tail as she watches a leaf flutter across the stones. Today your blend is simple. Orange peel for clarity, crushed mint for coolness, a whisper of rice husk for texture. You chew the twig until its fibers split, then dip and brush slowly, deliberately. Not because your mouth hurts, it hasn't in weeks, but because this moment, this small ceremony has become the way you remember who you are. Before you finish rinsing, someone arrives. It's the girl with the faint burn scar beneath her chin, the one who used to flinch when people spoke too loudly. She carries a small jar no larger than her palm, sealed with wax and tied with string. "I collected it during the last storm," she says. "It's rainwater from the corner where the fig branches hang over the roof." You nod, accept the jar with both hands and uncork it. It smells faintly of sky and stone. You sprinkle a few drops into your herb bowl, watching them disappear into the powder like blessings. "You remembered," you say. She smiles and brushes without needing instruction. By mid-morning, the courtyard is quietly full. It doesn't buzz with conversation, doesn't echo with chants. Instead, it pulses with something deeper. The rhythm of people breathing through their brushing, of cloths being folded and bowls being passed, of new pain arriving and old pain making peace with itself. A grandmother brushes with the reverence of someone reciting a sacred hymn. Her gums are thin, her teeth few, but her hands steady. Beside her, two brothers sit cross-legged, taking turns helping each other rinse. They argue over who hums louder. You tell them louder isn't better, it's longer that matters. They hum again, drawing it out like a thread they don't want to cut. A merchant sits in the corner, chewing on the end of a stick. His eyes are closed. You watch his lips move. Later, when he rinses and hands the bowl back to you, he says, "I whispered my grandfather's name before every stroke." You nod. Then you've brushed more than teeth today. Then comes the woman with the poem. She walks with a slight limp, her left hand trembling slightly. She holds no bundle, no gift, just a scrap of parchment. She reads aloud, her voice thin but clear. I bit down on memory and chipped a tooth. I bit down on silence and lost the root. I brush now to find the shape of joy. You ask if you may pin it to the listening wall. She hesitates, then nods. You hang her poem beside the one left by the boy who forgave his brother with clove powder. The parchment flutters gently, the breeze lifting its corners like a bird just before flight. In the early afternoon, a boy arrives with a scroll tucked under one arm. It's filled with drawings, not of temple glyphs, but of teeth. Not perfect ones either. These are real crooked molars, chipped incisors, gaps and all. At the bottom of the page, he sketched your cat, her tail curling beneath the rinsing bowls. I draw what people forget to look at, he says. You hand him a soft brush already dipped in rose water. He brushes while you copy one of his sketches onto a broken piece of tile. When he's done, he sits under the fig tree and draws the herb jars. Later, a tall man arrives, limping, leaning on a wooden cane. His clothes are travel-worn and his voice is so quiet you almost miss his words. My tooth doesn't hurt, he says, but my breath feels heavy. You nod and prepare a rinse of warm water, myrrh resin, and a sliver of lemon peel. He swirls the liquid in his mouth, eyes closed, then spits into the basin. He breathes in, breathes out, then says, I didn't know breath could feel like a gift. You give him a pouch of powder for the road. As he walks away, he straightens a little. Not much, but enough. Near dusk, your mother joins you under the tree. She brushes now too. Not because you ask, and not because she believes in all the little rituals, but because it's become a quiet thing you share. She dips her twig in the same bowl as you, brushes with the same blend. Tonight's includes fig bark rose ash, and something sweet you can't quite place, maybe a little honey root. After she rinses, she says, We never did this before. You pause. No, I used to think brushing was just about the mouth. You smile. I used to think pain only lived in the teeth. She chuckles, reaches out and smooths a wrinkle in your tunic. You've taught people how to listen to their breath, she says, and maybe to each other. You don't respond. You don't need to. As the stars rise one by one, you gather the day's offerings, a line from a poem left under the cat's tail, a pebble smoothed by someone's thumb, a reed that smells faintly of cinnamon, and a note written by a visitor who brushed 3 times and said nothing until the very end. The note reads, Today, I remembered how to sit with myself. You pin it to the wall. The breeze stirs it gently. You brush once more before sleep, not to clean, but to remember. The sky's the colour of steeped fig skin when the knock comes 3 quiet taps against the gate, spaced as if the visitor isn't entirely sure whether they should knock again or walk away. You wipe your hands on a cloth rise from the herb bench and make your way across the courtyard. The cat lifts her head, flicks one ear and watches. You open the gate. A man stands there, mid-40s perhaps, with a posture like a bundled scroll, tight coiled always on the edge of unfolding. His eyes dart past your shoulders, not in fear, but in a kind of long-held caution, like someone used to looking for exits. I don't have a toothache, he says, voice dry from the road. You nod, stepping aside. People often arrive that way now, not because their teeth hurt, but because something else does. He walks in slowly, stopping just short of the fig tree's shade. He carries no bag, no bundle, no reed pouch, only a single stick worn smooth at one end from months of chewing. "I found this on the day my daughter was born," he says. "Bit down on it while waiting. I've kept it ever since." You gesture toward the mat. He sits gingerly, legs folding with hesitation. The cat circles once, then settles beside him. He watches her, says nothing more. You prepare a rinse, basil, marjoram, a touch of cinnamon ash and ground rosebud, a blend you call memory root, not because it erases anything, but because it holds things softly enough that people can let them go on their own. You hand him the bowl and nod once. He brushes. No words, no humming. Just the quiet rhythm of twig against enamel, emotion slow and steady, like a man brushing away years he forgot he carried. When he finishes, he doesn't speak. Not at first. Then finally I think my mouth has more to say than I've ever let it. You pass him a palm scrap and an ink reed. He writes a single sentence. My teeth kept her name long after I stopped saying it. You hang it on the listening wall just beneath a child's note that reads, "I only bite when I'm afraid." Later that morning, more visitors arrive. A girl who says she grinds her teeth every time she dreams of water. You give her a powder made from sea fennel and lavender ash, mixed with tiny flakes of mint bark. A widow brings a pouch of old rings, each one tied to a memory. She hasn't eaten anything solid in weeks. You offer her a soft rinse with hibiscus and honey root. She brushes, rinses, smiles once, then leaves the rings beneath the fig tree without a word. A woman with grey in her braids brings 5 sticks. She lays them out like offerings. "One for each of my children," she says. They don't brush. They don't speak. You prepare 5 pouches, each blend different. Each twig wrapped in dyed cloth clove for the oldest sweet basil, for the one who won't eat rosemary, for the child who moved away, crushed lemon leaf for the daughter who hums in her sleep, and rose ash for the youngest who cries when no one is looking. She thanks you. She does not cry. But as she leaves, the cat follows her to the gate, then returns only when the last footstep fades. The temple apprentice arrives near noon. He carries fresh papyrus scrolls and a soft grin. People are starting to write their own recipes, he says, even if they don't know the names of the herbs. He hands you a scroll. On it a list of made-up names: kind powder, dream dust, quiet salt, moon rinse. You smile. Sometimes names are more honest when they're guessed. You pin the scroll to the far corner of the listening wall, where newer hands are learning to write not just what hurts, but what heals. In the late afternoon, the sun hangs heavy over the walls and the courtyard quiets. A boy arrives with a tooth wrapped in linen. "I didn't pull it," he says. "It fell out while I was praying." You unwrap it. It's a molar, clean, smooth. You hand him a pinch of mint powder and a warm bowl of water. "Rinse for gratitude," you say. He does. When he finishes, he tucks the tooth into the earth beneath the fig tree. "Maybe it'll grow into something else," he whispers. You hope he's right. That evening you prepare a new blend for the shelf. You name it, "For Those Who Chew Guilt." It smells of myrrh and sage with a trace of cracked date seed. You wrap it in dark blue cloth, mark it with a symbol for forgiveness, and place it beside your gentler blends. As the stars blink into the sky, you light your lamp, sit beside the cat, and begin your nightly brushing. Tonight's twig is sandalwood, rare a gift from a woman who once rinsed in silence for a full hour before speaking her brother's name. You chew the end slowly, dip it into memory root, and begin. As you brush, you recall the man from this morning. The way his fingers trembled after writing his sentence. The way his eyes looked lighter just a little after rinsing. You close your eyes, spit, rinse, then whisper, May the ache you swallowed find its way out through breath, not bitterness. The cat purrs once, and sleep comes quickly. You wake to birdsong and the soft creak of someone settling beside the fig tree. The light hasn't quite broken over the courtyard wall, but the air is already warm, quiet, heavy with the scent of crushed mint damp stone and sleep not yet fully shaken off. You sit up, stretch slowly and find the cat watching you, her tail curled neatly around her paws, as if waiting for you to catch up with the morning. The figure under the tree is familiar. It's the merchant who hums. He's one of your earliest visitors, one who never asked for powder by name, but who returned each week with a new story or silence that carried its own rhythm. Today he's brought someone else, a girl no older than 8, her hair tied in 2 loose braids, her eyes round and cautious. She asked why I hum when I brush, he says, so I brought her to see. The girl doesn't speak right away, but she looks around with the kind of focused stillness that children have when they're somewhere sacred. She notices the bowls, the jars, the listening wall, the cat. You nod, step inside, prepare 2 soft twigs, one wrapped in cloth soaked in fig water, the other dipped in your morning blend mint rosemary powdered date seed and a pinch of orange ash. You bring out a shallow basin, pour warm water from the kettle and set it between them. Brush together, you say. Don't worry about doing it right. Just listen to each other. They begin. The father hums soft and steady, his rhythm already familiar to your ears. The girl doesn't hum at first. She watches. She chews the twig slowly. Then halfway through the second stroke she opens her mouth wider and lets out a note high and thin like wind through a narrow reed. He hears her. He shifts his hum to match hers. Together they become something else. When they finish, she dips her fingers into the basin, flicks a drop onto her wrist and smiles. Then she pulls a leaf from her pocket, a wide flat one marked in soft charcoal lines. She hands it to you. On it is written, "My mouth is a door and my brush is the key." You read it aloud. She nods. You place it carefully on the listening wall beneath a scroll that says, "I forgive myself with every rinse." By mid-morning, the courtyard is alive again. A widow with sunburned cheeks arrives clutching a cracked bowl. "I haven't eaten anything solid in 3 days," she says. "Everything tastes like dust." You nod and prepare gentle stone, a blend of fennel rose ash, powdered almond skin and dried mint root. You warm it with a bit of fig broth, pour it into her bowl and kneel beside her as she brushes. Her first stroke is shaky, her second stronger. By the 5th she's humming softly. She doesn't finish the bowl. She places it near the tree with 2 fingers pressed to her heart. A boy no older than 10 arrives next, biting his lip with every step. His gums are swollen red. He winces when you speak. "Bad breath," he whispers, embarrassed. You say nothing. Instead, you heat a rinse with hibiscus and sage swirl in a touch of salt and pour it into a smooth clay basin. You hold it out. He stares at it like it might judge him. You raise an eyebrow. It doesn't care. Neither do I. He chuckles barely, then rinses. He spits. Rinses again. Then he looks up. "It smells like I can speak again." You nod, then speak. He says nothing more, but he leaves a pebble shaped like a tooth beside your mat. Later in the day, a woman appears carrying a wooden box. She's old, not in a fragile way, but in a sun-warmed, smoke-scented, woven cloth kind of way. She places the box before you and opens it slowly. Inside are small glass jars, each carefully sealed. "These were my grandmother's spices," she says. She never brushed her teeth a day in her life. But her breath always smelled like stories. You lift the lids one by one, saffron-dried, lemon pepper, root cardamom clove, something sweet and unfamiliar. You close your eyes, breathe in. You mix a blend right there, saffron-dried citrus, pepper root and rose ash. You call it her memory. You brush with it that evening. It tastes like heat and history. like the back room of a storyteller's home, like secrets whispered between generations, like bitter tea left on the fire too long and honey stirred in after with a grandmother's spoon. As you rinse, you whisper, "For the breath that carried the names of those before me, I carry you now." You pour the remaining powder into a jar and place it on the top shelf. You write the recipe in your own hand. That night under the fig tree, the cat stretched across your ankles, the moon sharp against the dark, you write a new scroll. Today a child taught her father how to hum, a widow learned to taste again, a boy remembered his voice, and I remembered that brushing isn't always for the ones who ache. Sometimes it's for the ones still learning how to speak. You pin the scroll beside the leaf the girl gave you, then you brush one last time, slow, steady, listening. A fig leaf lands in your rinse bowl just as you finish grinding the morning's powder. You pause watching it spin gently on the surface, its edges browned veins delicate as spider silk. You don't fish it out right away. There's something comforting about it. A quiet agreement between the tree and your bowl today will begin slowly. The cat watches perched on her favourite corner of the low wall. Her eyes blink once, twice. She approves. You stir the bowl once with your brush twig now freshly frayed from a night of drying over lemon steam. The blend today is a bright 1 mint orange peel powdered clove and a pinch of ground nutmeg. You call it morning breath, though not the kind most people whisper about with shame. This is the kind of morning breath that means awakening clarity, the first spoken word after sleep. You brush beneath the fig tree as the light warms the stone. Each stroke feels like memory. Each hum vibrates not just your jaw but your chest. You rinse with the leaf still floating. You spit gently. You nod toward the cat. The day has begun. Soon after, the temple apprentice arrives carrying a scroll and a hopeful expression. He doesn't speak right away, just sets the scroll carefully on your mat and kneels beside it. They want you to come to the school, he says, to speak. You arch an eyebrow, not a lesson, he adds quickly, more like a remembering. For the children. You unroll the scroll. Inside is a date, a list of names, and a title. In bold ink, the mouth remembers what the jaw hides, the breath reveals. You laugh softly. They think that title will make me say yes. They think it's the truth, he says, and shrugs. They also think you're already teaching, even if you won't admit it. You roll the scroll back up, set it aside, and motion for him to help you sort the mint. He grins and begins. The first visitor that morning is a woman with a basket of stale bread crusts. She sets it down beside your mat, eyes wary but determined. "I want to eat again," she says, without clenching. You prepare a rinse fig broth, crushed cardamom honey root, your first bite blend. You hand her a soft twig and nod once. She brushes slowly. Her hands tremble, but she does not stop. When she finishes, she does something few do. She picks up a crust, lifts it to her mouth and bites. Not a test, not a ritual, a choice. She chews, she smiles. She leaves the rest of the bread for the birds laying the basket beneath the fig tree like a story she no longer needs to carry. Not long after, a boy appears, lip-bruised silence tucked beneath his chin like a hidden name. He holds out a chewed-down twig too short to use but clearly not ready to be discarded. You say nothing. You kneel and prepare clove piece, mint, clove sage, a dash of salt. You warm the water, offer it in your hands. He brushes, carefully. Afterward you hand him a palm scrap and an ink reed. He writes slowly. Sometimes the pain isn't in the tooth, it's in what made me bite down. You place the note on the listening wall beside a line from Last Moon that reads, "I don't grind in my sleep anymore, I speak in it." The cat walks over, rubs against his ankle, then curls on your mat. The boy leaves behind his old twig, placing it at the base of the wall. Before noon, a woman with silver bangles and a crooked smile arrives carrying a wooden box. "These were my grandmother's," she says. Spices she kept wrapped in cloth. She opens the lid slowly. Inside jars of saffron dried lemon pepper, root clove pods, bits of dried fig. She never brushed, she says, but her breath always smelled like stories. You inhale. The scent is warm, sharp, comforting. You prepare a new blend: saffron, dried citrus, ground, fig peel, rose ash. You call it her memory. You brush with it yourself that night, and it tastes like something once told around a fire. She leaves the box behind. I have what I need, she says, tapping her chest. You place the box beside the herb bench. That afternoon, a man arrives, carrying a tooth in a cloth. It fell out this morning, he says, holding it out like a child showing a treasure. You don't laugh. You simply nod. You prepare a rinse lemon balm salt myrrh, warm, earthy kind. He brushes the empty space with care. When he finishes, he places the tooth beneath the fig tree. Let it root, he says, into something. I don't have to hold any more. You whisper a small blessing over it. The apprentice watches quietly. That evening, as the sun turns the courtyard gold, you sit together and copy verses for the temple school. Simple ones, honest ones. Brush like you're remembering. Rinse like you're releasing. Speak like your mouth is your home. You roll the scroll, seal it with wax. You place it beside the mint jar. Before bed you brush one last time. Tonight's twig is sandalwood, a gift from the girl who once brought you rainwater and no words. Your blend is gentle fig dust and quiet. As you rinse, you speak softly. Let this day leave me gently. Let the aches it carried soften. Let my mouth remember joy, and let my breath carry peace. You spit. You smile. And the cat already asleep by your mat doesn't even stir. The morning arrives thick and slow, like warm syrup poured over stone. Even before the sun clears the rooftops, the air is heavy, too heavy for breath to rise easily. It settles in your lungs like a sigh that forgot how to leave. The courtyard holds the heat in its walls, in its shadows, even in the small bowls of dried herbs near the base of the fig tree. The cat has moved only once from the doorstep to the basin, where the stone still remembers the coolness of night. You move just as slowly. Today's twig is olive wood soaked overnight in rosewater and dried basil. It bends softly beneath your teeth, splitting into fine bristles without resistance. You dip it into a powder you ground last night while the wind pressed against the windows lemon balm, clove ash mint, and the faintest trace of fennel. You've named it light breath, hoping it might do what the air can't. You brush without humming. Some mornings don't ask for sound. They ask for patience. Your rinse is warm. The water tastes faintly of fig bark and silence. You spit into the earth, press your hand briefly to your cheek and wait. Your first visitor comes just as the fig tree casts its first real shadow. She's the gardener from the southern fields where the water runs shallow and the soil clings to skin. Her arms are dark with sun, her fingernails black with clay. She walks with the posture of someone used to holding everything in her spine. She sets no bundle on your mat. She carries no twig, no jar. Just one question. What do you use when your mouth forgets how to taste? You don't answer right away. Instead, you grind orange peel with pomegranate bark, stir in ground, hibiscus petal, and mix it with warm water until it smells like heat and fruit and memory. You call it remember flavor. She brushes slowly, rinses, brushes again. When she finishes, she looks around and picks up a single grape someone had left in the offering bowl near the herb bench. She bites, chews, then closes her eyes. I can taste the sun again, she whispers. She leaves behind a vine stem with 3 green leaves. You press it between pages of a drying scroll. The leaves curl in like they found home. Mid-morning brings a new kind of visitor. A man in blue temple robes arrives, carrying a cracked ceramic vessel. Its surface scorched from fire, its lid sealed with resin and dust. He kneels before the fig tree and opens the jar. Inside, teeth. Dozens of them. Small white, some worn smooth, others still bearing the curve of a childhood jaw. Collected over years, he says, from the temple school, from the sick ward, from the fire pits. You don't ask why they were saved, he continues. We used to burn them, then we buried them. Now the others, they say we should bring them to you. You nod once. You dig the hole yourself, hands deep in warm soil. Together you press the teeth into the ground, not as waste but as offering, as memory, as return. When the last one is buried, you sprinkle powdered clove and sweet basil across the mound. You write a short blessing on a palm scrap, not lost, not forgotten, just returned to the breath that shaped them. You tie the note to a reed stake and press it gently into the soil. The cat curls beside it, watches, stays. Later, two travellers arrive, a woman and her older brother. They don't speak at first. They sit side by side on the mat, sharing a single satchel between them. She doesn't eat, the brother says not unkindly, and I don't know how to help. The woman looks down, her jaw tight. Her fingers twist the corner of the cloth pouch like it might answer for her. You prepare two separate blends, for her peppermint powdered date pit sweet basil and a touch of rose water, for him myrrh resin ground clove dried sage. You hand them each a twig, pour 2 bowls of warm water, nod once, they brush. She begins first, slowly. Her hum is hesitant, almost a tremble. He follows steadier, deeper. They don't speak after, but when they leave they do so hand in hand. The brother leaves a folded linen square beneath your mat. Inside is a note. I couldn't hold her grief, but I could brush beside it. You hang it on the listening wall just beneath yesterday's message from a boy who wrote I stopped bleeding after I spoke. By late afternoon the air shifts slightly. The heat lifts its weight just enough for breath to return more freely. A boy comes running into the courtyard, his sandals flapping a tooth in his hand. It fell out while I was laughing, he announces, grinning wide. You nod. Offer him a bowl of salt water and mint. He brushes the space where the tooth once sat. Afterward, he sets it carefully in a small hole beneath the fig tree and says, grow into something with roots. You place a pebble on top. Write nothing. Some blessings are already spoken. That evening, as the courtyard quiets, the apprentice returns. He sets a new scroll beside you, already written in soft ink, titled How to Brush. When you're tired of holding it in, you don't ask who wrote it, you just read. Then you mix one last powder before bed, lemon balm, fig bark, a drop of honey. No clove, no mint, no fire, just sweetness, just quiet. You brush slowly, eyes half closed, your hum softer than usual. You rinse, you spit. You place your hand on your chest, and you whisper, let this day rest in my mouth like a song I don't have to sing. Let it settle, let it soften, let it stay. The morning arrives without sound. No birdsong, no sweeping in the alley, not even the soft groan of a door opening down the road. The air is still thick with a kind of quiet that doesn't press down but opens up like the last page of a book being turned before you're ready to close the cover. The fig tree stands tall in its corner, still bearing leaves, though some have yellowed at the edges. A few curl slightly toward the light as if bowing. The cat is awake, already waiting beside your mat tail curled tightly around her front paws. She doesn't stretch or yawn or look away. She watches. You rise slowly. Not from tiredness, but because your body has learned how to move with softness. There is no rush, no ache. You walk to the herb shelf with your fingers already brushing the tops of the jars. Today you don't choose just one. You choose them all. A pinch of mint for breath, clove for memory, rose ash for loss, basil for steadiness, fennel seed for digestion and forgetting, and charcoal for what burned and cooled, fig bark for the base of it all, bitter fibrous grounding, and saffron the smallest trace for joy. You grind slowly, and the powder becomes a shade that doesn't have a name part, dust part, light part, story. You call it whole mouth. You chew your olive twigs slowly with the patience of someone who knows there's nothing more urgent to reach. When the bristles fan out, you dip them gently into the bowl and begin to brush. Each stroke feels like acknowledgement. Not a fight against pain, not a cleansing of sorrow, but a marking of where you've been. The powder tastes familiar, floral and deep, warm and strange, like every version of yourself who once knelt in this same courtyard, brushing with a different kind of ache. You rinse, spit, then pour a second bowl. This one is not for you. This one is for the fig tree. You kneel and slowly water its roots with a rinse made of lemon balm, honey root, and basil oil. The earth drinks it with a soft sound, a thank you. As you rise, the first knock comes. It's the boy with the missing front tooth, the one who used to bring pebbles and silent questions. Today, he doesn't come alone. Behind him, a small line of children, some familiar, some not, all holding twigs. They don't ask for powder, they don't wait for bowls, they just sit. One by one, they place things at your feet, a feather tied with thread, a drawing of the cat curled in a herb jar, a single mint leaf wrapped in wax paper, a clay bead shaped like a molar, a folded strip of linen with 7 stitched words. What happens to the ache when it's gone? You read the question aloud, your voice the only sound in the courtyard. The children don't look at you. They look at the tree, at the sky, at each other. You do not answer. Not yet. You collect their offerings and place them gently in a reed basket. You don't sort them. You don't label them. You just let them be. Later in the morning, the woman with the clove bundles arrives. She's wearing a shawl dyed the colour of ash, but her face is light bright as polished clay. I came to rinse, she says. Not because I hurt, but because I've grown used to singing afterward. You smile. Hand her your last scoop of the whole mouth blend. She brushes with her eyes closed, her mouth moving in quiet rhythm, as though speaking something too private for language. When she finishes, she doesn't stay. She only nods once, touches the edge of your mat and walks away. She leaves behind a single orange blossom. It smells like memory. Midday brings the apprentice. He's older now. Not just in height, but in how he carries his shoulders. He brings a scroll. It's finished, he says. The temple wants to place it in the new archive. They're calling it the Book of Gentle Practice. You take the scroll in your hands. Its edges are smooth, its ink faintly perfumed with basil and cedar. On the cover, someone has drawn a small bowl with a ripple running through it. Inside there are recipes, brush chants, short verses from visitors, drawings of twigs, powder jars, the fig tree, the cat. One page has your handwriting, another has the stitched question from the children. What happens to the ache when it's gone? You trace the letters with your finger, then close the scroll. You place it beside your mat, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Because even stories need somewhere to sleep. That afternoon you don't open any new jars. You don't mix any new powders. Instead you walk the courtyard. You touch the stones, the walls, the fig tree. You run your fingers along the listening wall. Many of the notes have faded. A few have blown away. Some have curled at the edges. You don't replace them. You don't rewrite them. They've done their work. In the evening, as the sky lowers its voice and the shadows stretch like long limbs across the courtyard, you prepare one last brush. You chew slowly. Olive wood, softened in rose water. You dip into the whole mouth powder. You brush, not to clean, not to soothe, but to speak with your body one more time before the day ends. You rinse, spit, wash the bowl yourself, then sit and write. I brushed through silence, through salt, through sweetness, through questions that cracked my molars and laughter that loosened the pain. And now I do not brush to remove. I brush to remember how full my mouth once was with things I dared not say. You roll the scroll and place it on your mat. You pet the cat once behind the ears. She purrs, then turns her head away, satisfied. You lie down beneath the fig tree eyes, half-closed limbs open to the hush of the courtyard. You do not speak, you do not hum, but you breathe steady, unhurried whole. And in that breath, everything you once carried, every ache, every word unsaid, every tongue-bitten moment moves outward like a ripple in a still bowl. Gone, but not forgotten. Just quiet now. End of story. Sweet dreams.